Yeah, so here's the clicker. You can advance. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. So why don't we start right now? It's the last presentation of the day, and it's the last presentation for 4050 Warren Street. 15 minutes presentation, 15 minutes questions, comments for Nuestra Comunidad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, and good morning to everybody here from Roxbury and surrounding neighborhoods and everywhere else watching us on Boston Livestream TV. And thanks for sticking through the presentations. I'm David Price from Nuestra Comunidad. I want to tell you a bit about Nuestra and our history here. We've been part of Roxbury since 1981. And we began investing in Dudley Square in 1996 when we purchased the historic Sergeant Prince building on Roxbury Street. We went on to buy other properties in Dudley Square, all of which were 90% vacant when we bought them and now are 100% occupied. We seek out local businesses to fill retail spaces in our buildings in Dudley Square when they become available. Our last 3 vacant spaces were leased to Fasika Cafe, Frugal Bookstore, and Golden Crust Restaurant. And that speaks to the kind of businesses we want to bring to Dudley. We've been on the front lines of trying to stabilize the sidewalks and parking lots and other public spaces of Dudley Square over the past 3 or 4 years. During that time, we've invested over $300,000 beyond our baseline budget spending from 3 years ago on additional security cameras, other measures, wrought iron fencing, video cameras. We've organized neighbors, part of an effort to launch the Dudley Square Neighborhood Association in 2018 in order to advocate for the square with a stronger and more unified voice. And we have the capacity to undertake not only this project at 4050 Warren, but a pipeline of development opportunities. Like traditional developers, we handle multiple projects at once. For example, in 2018, we completed 5 buildings with a total of 98 homes and apartments, ranging in size from 2 units to 60 units. At our Bartlett Station project, in addition to the 2 buildings completed last year, we expect to begin construction on 2 or possibly more buildings in 2019. We permitted almost 40% of the units at Bartlett. And finally, I think financial capacity is an important part of a developer's capacity. Our last audited financial statement will tell you that we have $160 million in total assets. And that includes $22 million in unrestricted net assets, and that includes $3 million in unrestricted cash, which is stated at a stated level for the past 4 or 5 years. And that's just to give you detail so that you can have confidence that we can get the job done here. So I want to talk about our team. We think we've put together the right team for 40 Warren based on our experience working with projects of this scale, the mix of financing required, and our ability to meet the goals set by you, the community. The team, besides Nuestra, and we are the sole developer here, includes Mass Design Group. We have Jonathan Evans here and David Saladik here today. I think Michael Murphy is in the audience, who lives in Dudley Square. Jody Williams is also part of the team, who's working with Jonathan on our public art plaza at Bartlett also. Lena Jimenez is here, our project manager from Nuestra. Beverly Johnson, Bevco, is our permitting consultant, and Terrence Moreau is our broker. So we think our proposal for 40 Warren meets the development objectives in the RFP because it's detailed in every section as required, including the job standards, sustainability and health, anti-displacement and community needs. It's realistic because it's based on the breadth of experience and track records of all the team members. It's deeply affordable, helping set a new standard for development without displacement for 100% affordability at this development. It meets the needs of families across a wide range of incomes from $0 up to $65,000. It provides a range of bedroom sizes to accommodate families with a small number of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, and almost 70% of those are 2 and 3 bedrooms because we want to market to local families. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan Evans from Mass Design to talk more about the design of the building.
Thank you, David. Again, I'm Jonathan Evans, an architect with Mass Design Group. Just a little bit of background. Mass Design Group is a nonprofit design firm focused on issues of social justice. So the project like this is an exciting opportunity to really build on those ideals. A couple of background projects here. We've worked on the National Memorial of Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama, as well as in Boston here, the MLK and Curtis King Memorial for Boston Common. And again, here, I think the big thing I want to emphasize is that we are really honored to have this opportunity to create a building that really builds on the legacy of Dudley Square. Again, we've got Hibernian Hall, Dartmouth Hotel, Bowling Building here as neighbors, and we want to see this building as something that can plug into that fabric. And so I think part of doing that is using high quality materials, really sort of thinking about how we can play with shadow and depth and warmth and richness to make this building feel like it's part of that history. And again, part of that pride and dignity of Dudley Square. So again, what we're looking at doing is really high quality stone, terracotta on the upper levels of the building as well, to just really kind of make this thing feel like it's got a certain sense of pride to it. Relative to how the building breaks down, again, we're looking at 6 stories of family-focused, affordable housing units. So you can see here the unit breakdown. We've got 41 total units, ranging from studios, 2 studios, 11 one-bedrooms, 21 two-bedrooms, and 7 three-bedroom units. And again, you can see the range of affordabilities with that. So again, it's a 100% affordable development at 6 stories. I think the idea here is to create a critical mass, bring density, bring activity, bring families to the square in and of itself. And then down below at grade, we have our commercial space. And again, we actually had a community meeting before this RFP was released. Nuestra and Mass had a community meeting to sort of understand from residents what they wanted to see in a commercial space for the square. And a lot of that thinking has been brought into how we sort of form these spaces. Again, the idea of having kind of a 2-story prominent space at the corner, potential for opportunity for skill building, educational kind of employment opportunities there, as well as opportunity for smaller scale pop-up commercial spaces that are about empowering and kind of growing local businesses, incubating businesses that are already in the community. So I think this is, again, part of the kind of urban collage, it's kit of parts that we're bringing together in this project. So these are kind of a little bit more drawings that kind of show how we're doing all this. Again, this is a really tight urban site. So what you see here, start at the kind of the ground floor plan here along Warren Street is where we would have these commercial spaces. Residential entry off the corner. We're setting back off of Ziegler Street for loading access to the building, as well as to serve Palladio Hall that also needs to load from the back of the building. We're looking at doing a couple of car share parking spots on the site for the commercial and the residential space, as well as having ample bike parking for the residents. And then moving up, we have 6 stories of apartment units, dwelling units. Again, they range in size, of the studios being 575 square feet, all the way up to 3 bedrooms at over 1,000 square feet. So again, I think we're trying to sort of make something that really holds the corner, that really defines the place and provides opportunity for families to come into the square. And again, this is kind of a view at night. I think what's exciting here is the opportunity to really enhance public safety, to kind of create a place, create something that is active, that plugs into the square and creates more opportunities to really kind of fill in Dudley Square as a whole and kind of grow it into the future. So again, the idea of sort of activation, things happening in the building at night. So one of the things we also wanted to do here was really try to create opportunities for open space. Again, it's a tight urban site, so there really wasn't much opportunity to do that at grade. So what we really wanted to do is create a space on the roof of the building for an amenity space for the residents of the building. And again, that also helps for sustainability strategies and reducing some of the heat island effect. And again, a little bit more on sustainability. I think we are going to be LEED certified, as well as moving beyond that, looking at ideals of passive house construction. And again, this is kind of something that is a little bit above and beyond LEED, and thinking about how we can proactively make the building sort of super insulated, bringing in fresh air and opportunities to really, again, reduce the amount of heat and gas used to bring the cost of maintaining the building down. So again, really airtight construction, super insulated walls, high performance windows, again, opportunities for PV, green space on the roof. It's all about making this building a little bit more forward thinking in how it is a sustainable project. Additionally, again, we're looking at this building as also being an opportunity for art, the opportunity to use the building as a canvas, if you will, to reflect the community. So along 2 of the more prominent facades of the building, we see how we're considering how we can set the building up to really reflect the community and have opportunities for murals that can be permanent temporary installations that, again, are about letting the building reflect those who live here. And again, this is kind of a view stepping back, looking from kind of the library plaza. And again, we really are mindful of how this building plugs into and kind of works with the existing fabric and the precedent set by Dartmouth Hotel and Palladio Hall. Again, looking at opportunities for art. Again, you can see a little bit of the green space up top. But again, we're really excited about this project as something that can really plug into the context, plug into Dudley Square, and be part of its future. And with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Diversity, inclusion, and good jobs are a big part of our plan. Our plan for contracting and jobs is comprehensive, we think reasonable and justifiable, based on our proven effective methods and track record in those areas. Our development team is diverse with 3 MBE companies and 5 WBE companies. Our goals include 51% workers of color, 51% Boston residents, and 51% MBE contracting. Western's averaged more than 50% in each of those categories since 1995, and our WBE contracting goal and women workers goal is 15%. And one way to achieve those high numbers is to prepare contractors and workers for opportunities. And here's an image from a session we held at Bartlett Station a year and a half before construction started to prepare contractors and subcontractors for those opportunities and for them to bring local workers to the job. And for permanent jobs, although we anticipate the businesses operating will be small on a permanent basis and not required to meet the good job standards, we will make good faith efforts to help them meet as many as possible, especially hiring from Roxbury residents and Boston residents. Our plan sets a new standard for development without displacement at 100% affordability. We've set a high bar because the RFP not only requires a minimum of 2/3, but prioritizes proposals that maximize affordability. And everyone here is rightly concerned with the threat of gentrification and displacement. We plan for a range of incomes. 8 units are with families with incomes below $33,000, including those with no incomes. That's the 30% AMI bracket. 33 are for families from $34,000 to $64,000 annual income. That's the 60% AMI bracket. And if the state adopts a new federal rule called income averaging, we can provide units for families between $65,000 and $86,000, which is the 80% AMI bracket. We want to use the commercial space to fight displacement, and in 3 ways. We're going to be pioneering affordable retail rents here. We want to be flexible and work with the community about the retail space, and particularly the big corner space with the double height ceilings. One idea for that is a co-work space, but if there's another co-work space in Dudley Square, like at 2147 Washington, we want to work with you, the community, about what else could be there. It could be traditional retail, and Terrence certainly knows how to make that happen, but it could be other kinds of maker space, and we want to kind of work with you about what that would be. And there'll be multiple opportunities for artists, both with the affordable housing, especially the small retail space, and marketing through installation of works in the alley between Palladio and this building, and on the south side of the building. And one thought before I turn it over to Terrence for a few words, the connection to Palladio is important, that the owner of Palladio has to have access in the back of this new building for their dumpsters. And so we provided a large entryway for vehicles to do that. It'll also help us with some of our construction siting. But without that access, there's no way for Palladio to be able to get their trash out to the street. And because we know the property owners in Dudley Square, we talked to them, our offices in Palladio, we knew that that was important. So I'm going to turn it over to Terrence to talk a bit about what's going on in Dudley Square.
Hello everyone, I'm Terrence Moreau. I was a market rate renter in Dudley Square when I was in medical school. I am hopeful to be a homeowner in Roxbury in a few weeks. And I'm also a board member of Dudley Square Main Streets, as well as a real estate agent in this area. I say all that to say that usually my conversations with developers or homeowners is more of a top-down approach where we're talking about market, what we can build, and then who will potentially buy it. I also have the unique ability to engage with people from the community, not from the community, so more of a bottom-up approach in my role. What I've noticed is that usually we're thinking of Dudley Square 5, 10 plus years from now and what that'll look like. For me, I know it's a fact that Dudley Square will have a lot more market rate leasing and home ownership opportunities than affordable units. With that, I think the most important thing to really think about, because we have this unique ability to engage with developers for these public parcels, is to think who's going to offer diversity in units for people who live here. Meaning, it is really nice to see Nuestra offering things from studios to 2, 3-bedroom units, because that's what I see is needed with the community who lives in Dudley Square currently to fulfill what is normal to them. So everything from the artist who needs affordable space to the single mom with 3 kids, they have an ability to upgrade their living and still lease a nice unit within Dudley Square. The most important thing that I can leave you guys with In the grand scheme of Dudley Square, with all this development, it is most important to think about, with this public land, who is truly offering the most amount of affordable rental as well as commercial opportunities so that the people living here can continue to thrive within an affordable environment of Dudley Square. Thank you.
Thank you for Nuestra team, keeping it within 15 minutes. All right, so why don't we close with the comment questions on the Nuestra proposal for 40-50 Warren Street. Any questions, comments? Fred.
Okay, we're talking about Palladial Hall. I thought you owned Palladial Hall.
Sure. So we do no longer own Palladial Hall. We bought it, we renovated it, we put permanent historic preservation restrictions on it. We leased it up. It's a thriving building. And our board made a strategic decision to sell it a couple years ago to an owner who has a history in Dudley Square. They own one of the buildings that were taken over by eminent domain for the bowling building. They own properties like Palladial all across Boston. They're solid owners. And we needed to cash in on some of our equity to support our pipeline at Bartlett and elsewhere. That we raised lots of money for pre-development loans, but we also, for the early money, before you get your loans in equity, you need to put your own money in for those early architectural studies, zoning work, permitting, environmental studies, and looking ahead for the next 5 years and more, we realized that we needed to strategically manage our balance sheet, and so that's the decision we made. And it didn't affect any of our affordable housing, so we felt, and we put it in the hands of a solid owner, so that's why we did that.
Who is the owner?
It's the Farr family, and they, as I said, they used to own the building. If you remember where originally the Black Ministerial Alliance was, where now Soleil Restaurant is in.
The other thing is, on your ground floor, are you given affordability as far as the rents to the commercial space? And is there somewhere that you're going to help them build out the space? Because I know we've lost a lot of people, including Nubian Notion, because they were paying too much rent. And I didn't know if that's something that you can address.
Sure. So we do believe in affordable retail, and we've tried to pioneer deeply affordable retail at 40 Warren and at 135 Dudley. I mean, our experience in conversations with folks who in the retail space in Dudley Square is that to be successful, starting retail businesses need to have their base rents in the teens per square foot. And now at Bartlett, we raised $3 million to help subsidize fit-out costs and initial rent levels for 13,000 square feet of retail. We're not going to be able to raise $3 million here, but we're confident we can raise enough to help subsidize the fit-out expense, which is one of the most significant challenges any retail business faces. They often have to take on debt service on top of rent, which really makes it hard for them to succeed. So by minimizing the debt service, getting the rent down to the teens, although there may be some businesses that pay in the low 20s, but especially for the local startups, it needs to be below $20 a square foot. We think that's a recipe for success, and looking at the examples of what succeeded and what hasn't succeeded in Dudley Square.
John?
Hi. So I would say that the reason that the rent needs to be in the teens here is because we've concentrated all the poverty here, and businesses can't survive here and have a very difficult time here. Anywhere else in the city, the rent is higher than teens, and people compete for those spaces. And again, I equate that with the low home ownership rate. So I would say, and I appreciate you guys are concerned with the displacement that's happening, but wouldn't the best way to counteract displacement be to provide home ownership opportunities at an affordable level?
Well, we think the best way is to bring more affordable housing across a range of income mixes, homeownership and rental, which is why we proposed on 2 parcels, including 135 Dudley, where we are proposing 50 homeownership units. I think 12 of those are market rate. The others are moderate income, as well as 100 affordable units. We think what Dudley Square needs is people, buying power, because if you're low income, you still spend money on groceries. You still have to buy the necessities, and you can go to South Bay, you can go to Copley, or you can go to Dudley to buy those things. So right. Right. The point for folks who couldn't hear on the recording is, if you're low income and you own, then you can build equity, and that's true. And that's why we're providing the 50 home ownerships at 135 Dudley. We didn't think the numbers really worked for that here, and would probably bring a much higher income mix that we wanted to, and I think what the community wanted to in the RFP. But I do want to say on home ownership, we've built and sold over 170 homes in Roxbury over the years. Last year we built, I think it's 38 homes, and have sold, I think we still have 9 on the market. So we are big believers in home ownership and building wealth and equity. Last year, 230 people graduated from our first-time homebuyer classes. So we want to prepare people to own homes and not be taken advantage of by subprime loans. So as they grow wealth, they can keep that and not lose it. So we're with you on that overall goal. You can't do everything in one building, but as part of a conversation about what Dudley Square needs, I agree we need mixed income and home ownership as well as rental.
Any other question or comment? Yeah, come on. And then Brian.
Hi again. Okay, I was just listening to Terrence talking about buying a home. Nice to meet you. Well, guess what? I'm not married. My kids are grown, and I want to buy a home. But I didn't hear him say anything about the single guy who's actually working, doing this thing. So, well, what about us? You know, you're not representing us out here. You.
Yes. Nice to meet you also. Specifically for this project, I am only talking about the affordable leasing opportunities for 40 to 50 Warren Street. But as David just mentioned, they did submit a proposal on the Dudley Street parcel, and that does include homeownership opportunities. So maybe we can continue this conversation after this, because I do think there are options for you.
The presentation mentioned a cap of about 60% on AMI. Do you have flexibility to increase that higher to market or even lower, or is there any flexibility in that range, or are you stopping at 60? Thank you.
Sure. Well, there's also a lower range of 30% AMI, which is the 33,000 or below income. Oftentimes in the 60% bracket, you end up targeting folks at more like 50%, so that you have a marketing window. You have flexibility, so it's not, you don't have to be right at the top of that income. And if the federal government approves this income averaging rule, we could offer up to 80% AMI, and I believe that income will get up to $86,000 of 80% AMI. We didn't propose market rate. There are other developers, and Terrence knows them well, who are building market rate housing in Dudley Square. We believe in mixed income, but here, especially because the RFP emphasizes the maximum amount of affordability given the threat of displacement and gentrification, we wanted to do 100% affordable here. But there's still an opportunity for that middle income to come in here.
Brett?
I'm doom and gloom, I guess, but what I'm concerned about is the problem that we have in Dudley Square now is that there's too much low income. And to not even have that up to the pace of workforce housing, which is 70%, for the professionals, the firefighters, the police, the teachers, we're going to end up with the same situation. If it's all low income housing, there'll be nobody there that's going to be able to pick up our merchants. And this is what that I'm concerned about. I'd rather see some market rate and middle income and not all low income.
I agree. We can't do everything in one building. But at Bartlett, for example, we're doing a third market rate because we've heard loud and clear, especially when that program was set, that was a strong request from the community. So it's 2/3 affordable with low and moderate and a third market. And I think a healthy mix in the square is what's called for.
Yes, come on up, please.
My issue is the existing businesses, and what kind of businesses are you gonna put in this retail space? Is it gonna be affordable? This area is like one big Cheers. Everybody knows your name. I'm not sure what he's talking about as far as too much low income. I've never heard that before. So I'm not sure what he means by that. But are we gonna be able to afford these businesses? You have a store downstairs right now, nobody's never rented because they can't afford it. So how are you gonna handle that?
No, that's a very good question, and I think one of the things that we're trying to include in this proposal is the idea that these spaces can be somewhat flexible. We can make them, they can be subdivided into smaller spaces. The idea that we're creating, we're calling them incubator spaces that are relatively small in size potentially, that allow opportunities for small businesses to grow and kind of potentially, try out ideas, see if there's a sort of capacity or desire in the community for those ideas, and then they can potentially graduate into bigger spaces. But I think as part of the idea of having these kind of smaller incubator spaces, we try to, as best we can, try to address some of the upfront capital construction costs and some of that stuff. So try to consider the design as a way to sort of catalyze and grow these businesses and support this desire that we've heard loud and clear. Again, we had a community meeting about this project right when the RFP was released to kind of get people's take on what they wanted to see here and how they wanted the commercial spaces to work. So again, we heard a lot of desire for, 20 years ago, there used to be a hat store. There used to be these smaller scale community organizations, so community businesses. So we wanted to certainly try to create the opportunity for that to happen again as best we could. So I think we definitely we hear you loud and clear, and we're trying to do that.
Any other question, comment? Come on down, Linda.
Just to remind everyone, I don't know how you look at those who are low income, who their faces are, but it is cross-cultural. Okay, keep that in mind. They have to live somewhere as well. They're trying to stay within the area because they have family here. They know the community residents. They want to stay in, solid ground and in familiarity. That's what keeps it a tight-knit community.
Great. Any other question or comment? So I want to, I'll conclude this portion. I want to thank Nuestra for this. So that brings to a close the presentations for both 2147 Washington Street and 40-50 Warren Street. Just one quick then end of meeting. What's next steps? Folks here, folks watching at home. The comment period, which I referred to earlier, concludes on April 29th. So please look at the agenda for guidance on that, but in essence, you could email me or Joe Backer, or else you could log a comment in D&D's website. D&D with the BPGA will continue to work with the project review committee to evaluate all of the proposals. The presentation here and the comments that we've heard, the questions we've heard are very, very important. The PRC is going to consider them, and the plan is to have a recommendation by the late spring that would then be presented to the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee for consideration and for approval, so that we could then go to D&D's Public Facilities Commission for developer designations in the early summer. what we didn't mention today, but we mentioned at the presentation back in February, is that one of our goals is to work with the applicants so that they're prepared to apply to the Department of Housing and Community Development in their annual funding round. And those proposals need to be in place at the end of this year. So that's one of the reasons why the timeline is as it is. So anyway, I want to conclude matters here. Thank everyone from the Project Review Committee, abutters, residents, and businesses for taking time out from their Saturday. It's greatly appreciated. It's very important. And have a great long weekend, right? Patriots Day? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.